right, listen up. Welcome back to the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok at the Construction Mentor. What are we here to do? We're here to promote the construction industry, opportunities, how to get in there, how to take advantage of them, and ultimately how to live an affluent lifestyle, how to put more food on the table for you, your family, and what that looks like. So in this format, we like to bring in people from all over the country, different trades, different walks of life, and we like to talk about how they got into the industry, what they're doing, and what we've come across for a lot of young people who I know want to be influencers are what I would call construction influencers on social media. And I have another one here today, Cody, Blue Collar Bones. Love his content, been following him for a while. He has very parallel messaging to me. I didn't actually grow out a mustache just to match him, but his messaging is pretty explicit about what he stands for. It's a lot of middle fingers and mustaches is what I would say, motivating people to get into the trades. I invited Cody on because I want him to share his story and where he's at in the country. I think he has a unique perspective in a unique area of the country that a lot of people give me pushback about. So with that, Cody, how are you? Welcome.
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. And likewise, man, I like your message and exactly what you're pushing. You know, it's like a lot of people get forced into the college side, which is great if you got a game plan, but there's a whole nother world where you can make a very good living in the trades. So yeah, like for me, I started out as just like a handyman on accident that I got a job randomly, kind of turned into working for an electrician, got right into the trades and went through the trade school. And my journeyman license as an electrician.
And I think a lot of people get into the trades, by accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, I think a lot of young people want to be business owners and be entrepreneurs. It's just kind of like because it sounds good, right?
Yeah.
And you, although you stumbled into the industry and then got an education, you've now started two businesses based on your experience in the industry. So I want to get there. Right. We're going to go through, where Cody grew up, where he is in the country, I want to walk through his path about how he picked what trade he picked, why he picked it and what that pays. And then how he's basically taken that to his own business and his own social media platform, Blue Collar Bones. So let's start with the Blue Collar Bones. How'd you come up with the name Blue Collar Bones? What's that about? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Blue Collar Bones is just like, like your blue collar, it's like in your bones. I was working at a chip manufacturing facility where we were doing a bunch of like small projects, but we're just there all the time.
Big chip, like computer chip manufacturing?
Like semiconductors, Micron.
Semiconductor, okay.
Yeah. So it was just like, it wasn't a maintenance job, but like our whole crew was there. We were doing a bunch of small jobs, so there's a lot of downtime. A lot of guys were just goofing off on their phone. So that's when I started like kind of looking into online businesses, Instagram, seeing all these influencers, like you're saying, like, electricians, plumbers, HVAC guys, welders, like they're just recording what they're doing at work, posting it. So that's pretty cool. And then I was like, how do you build business around that? So I started thinking about different things I could do and just kind of started Blue Collar Bone, just reposting pictures, posting myself, came up with the slogan, skip college, pick a trade. I know a lot of people who did not go through college successfully. When I was like 16, I was homeschooled. So I had to go to community college to finish up like my regular classes. And I just thought that's what you're supposed to do to continue. And I was going to community college, just bullshitting around and got into the electrical trade.
It's funny because you're sitting around a semiconductor facility with a bunch of guys and you came up with this idea for merch. And if there's one thing that the trades are good at, it's coming up with merch and stickers specifically to put on people's hats and stuff like that. But what I think you did very interestingly, and it's just wild that you did it without a college education, is that you were able to tap into people's pride about skipping college and going into a trade. Right. So you found this business model. You see other people making money in this way, and you said, how can I do that? How can I start playing in that and generate a little scratch for myself? And I think that you hit. There's a big narrative out there to skip college, go into the trades. But what a lot of people aren't doing or haven't done successfully is struck people's pride that have done that, right? And you've done that. And I think that's where, if you follow Cody and his content, and you see all the people sharing, the shirts that he has and the hats that he has and the stickers, on their job sites. It's very much like I said, mustaches and middle fingers. It's people kind of having that. It's almost like Rage Against the Machine. I mean, I know they've gone a different way these days, but it's kind of like the middle finger to the establishment of
the fucking punk rockers, a blue collar,
I did it. I went in the trades and look how much money I'm making, and I did it without college, and I'm making more money than everybody else. And I think we need more of that, because I think it's a good way to raise people's awareness. So good for you. Now talk about that mantra: skip college, pick a trade. What did that look like for you early on? You were homeschooled when you were in high school. Why was that? Just family choice? Like what was
my parents were terrified. They didn't want me to become a liberal. So they homeschooled all of us.
To clarify, you're in Idaho.
Yeah. Well, I was in California when I was a kid. I grew up in Central Valley.
Oh.
So
okay.
Yeah, I grew up right in the middle of California. Was homeschooled my whole life. Never went to public school or anything. And then I went to the community college when I was 16. So I went from like homeschool and church to community college. Did that.
So you felt you felt the pressure even though you were homeschooled? You still felt the pressure to go to college?
Yeah, because there's 8 of us, so like my 4 older sisters, they all went to college, and they were like, you go to the community college, you get your credits, whatever, and then you transfer to a regular college, state college or whatever. So that's just the path everybody took. So I was like, all right, my turn. Let's go. So I started going to the community college. I was going to do all my credits, and I was going to transfer whatever. But I'm like taking music classes. I was doing a lifeguard class, just taking like random classes for no reason.
Yeah, you're spending you're spending a couple grand at a community college to take a bunch of just classes just to take classes. Nothing that was going to help you make money for yourself.
Exactly. I took a mechanic class. It's like, what am I going to do? Be a teacher? It's like, I have no vision here. I have no reason to do anything. So I was working at a restaurant at the same time. And then I got a job as a handyman for this guy doing chimney sweeping, working on foundations, doing electrical. So once I started working for him, it was like $12 an hour. It was, a while ago. In my head, I'm like, that's good money. Plus I'm working at a restaurant at night making tips. So I was like, I don't even need to go to college. I'm making way more money doing this. So I just quit. And I was like, $12 an hour is good. And then working at the restaurant. And then I got a job in San Diego to go work for an electrical contractor that was like, hey, you can go to a trade school and do 4 years and you come out, you got your journeyman license, and you can go anywhere in the country. Once you have that J card, you're licensed, you're an electrician, and they make good money. So I was like,
I think a lot of people, and I want to get to the amount of hate that you get, because I'm sure people come at you, but one of the ways people push back on me is they say, oh, I'm not making this amount of money. I'm in the trades and I'm not making it in Idaho or North Dakota or whatever, or I've been in this and I have never cracked $100,000. Yeah. And it's like, okay, hold on. Not every job in construction. You got to pick the right trade, right? There's a difference between skilled labor, a skilled trade. That's why it's called skilled trades, and just being labor, right? So chimney sweeping would be an example of not very skilled labor. I'm sure you can build a
$12 an hour,
right? Nobody's saying that, just by picking up a broom, you're going to make $100,000 a year. You have to have a skilled trade, which is why plumbing, electrical are always at the top of the list, for my recommendations. So talk to me about what you saw in the opportunity and as being an electrician, and what you were able to make, on your way to getting that journeyman license.
Yeah. So this was,
and that was in San Diego, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. So when I started my actual apprenticeship, it was in San Diego, and this was 10 years ago. So I was making $13 an hour out there as an apprentice. Wages are way higher now. In Idaho, we were starting guys at $23 an hour as apprentices, but that was for a solar company. So that was way different. But that's Idaho. So things are way different now. Just 10 years ago. So
right now, to start as an electrical apprentice in Idaho, if you're working on solar panels, you're making $23 an hour.
This was last summer, during a peak. So it was like you couldn't find anybody. My brother just started and he's making 22. starting out.
Whether your brother just started out in Idaho or whether you started out in San Diego.
Yeah.
So zero experience it takes to make $23 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully you don't have to do fractions, read a tape measure, but it's like, hey, you know, with a good foreman, good journeyman in a couple weeks, like you can learn the basics of tools. But like, obviously if you're mechanically inclined and you're not a complete dummy, like you should be able to get at least $20 an hour starting out.
What do you recommend for somebody looking for that opportunity, right? They're like, listen, I have zero experience and $23 an hour sounds very good to me. Mm-hmm. Where do they go? Do they go to it? You sound like you had a mentor or somebody that kind of pushed you into that opportunity.
Yeah.
Do they just show up at a trade school? Where would they go, no matter where they are, to find that opportunity?
If I was a kid, I didn't know what I was going to do. Just hop on Indeed, type in plumbers around you, see what they're hiring apprentices at, what they're hiring journeymen at. Look at the journeyman, because you want to look long, look ahead. So you want to see what they're paying journeymen, plumbers. Look up an HVAC company, look up an electrical company, fabricators, welders, carpenters, whatever. Just go through Indeed in your area, because every area is going to be different. Get on Google, like electrical. Each trade has its own niche, right? So like if you're a welder, you can learn specific things that's going to make you more money. If you're an electrician, certain areas are going to pay more than other areas. So like if you live in Arizona, you're doing a bunch of solar, you can make $250,000 a year working crazy hours, but you're bonusing out.
Don't overcomplicate this. Go on Indeed, find out what these guys make. Look at the journeyman rate. Don't look at the apprentice rate, right? So you made a very good point. So many young people look at the dollars that they would make tomorrow. They don't look at the dollars that they're going to make in 5, 10, 20 years. So you started out making $12 an hour as a chimney sweeper. Then with no electrical experience, you got a job as an apprentice at $23 an hour, which is $46,000.
I started at 13.
Well, you started at 13.
Yeah.
But somebody today could start at 23. But that was, okay. So today they could start at $23 an hour. And journeyman, and we'll talk about starting your own business, which then there's no ceiling on how much you can make. But San Diego versus Idaho, what's a journeyman electrician? I assume non-union. What are they making today?
In Idaho, I know guys that are making 40 plus. I know guys that are around 30, 35. Depending if you're doing track homes, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So you're obviously going to be making a little bit less per hour, but to get overtime. But, you work for a niche industry like solar. Before I left my job, I was making 43 plus all these bonuses. So you can make a lot more than just, $43 an hour.
$43 an hour is pretty good.
Yeah, especially,
that's 86 grand a year, right?
Yeah. So, and
that's not bad.
There's always the option for
Idaho.
Yeah, there's always the option for overtime. And then I got buddies in San Diego that make, $70, $80 an hour.
So that's very interesting. And that's why I wanted to highlight the difference of what people are talking about. When a lot of people come into my DMs, or if I get any negative comments, it's people in my comment section saying, oh yeah, you make that in the city, but you don't make that where I'm at in the middle of nowhere. Well, in Idaho, 86 grand a year before a minute of overtime is pretty damn good. In San Diego, it might be really expensive to live, but for $70 to $80 an hour, pretty decent living, no matter where you are, right? One of the things that I would encourage people to do is go look at Cody's Instagram at Blue Collar Bones. And if you look at his stories, you have very well basically pulled the public and said, hey, where are you? What do you make as a plumber? Where are you? What do you make as an electrician? Where are you? What do you make as a welder?
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. I was just poking through it. And as somebody that works, nationally, I work in 28 different markets right now. I have a pretty good pulse on what people make. I was pleasantly surprised and honestly encouraged about what some people are making and where they're making it. So go poke around on Bobby. I mean, on Bobby. I just got you mixed up with Blue Collar Bobby.
Got the mustache.
Too many mustaches and blue collar stuff going on. But yeah, go poke around on that, because Cody has some pretty good content, and you can just see it. You can just see the raw feedback that people give back from the public. So now you grew up you were homeschooled at least at a late age. Then you went to college. You figured out that you were just doing it just to do it. You got into the apprenticeship program and you went to a trade school and you were pursuing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you became a journeyman in San Diego, or at what point did you move to Idaho?
Yeah. So, and going back to what we were talking about, looking at the journeyman wage. So I got hired at $13 an hour, and my journeymen were making like 55. So I worked for a company that did like custom homes, remodels, kind of a lot of residential stuff, but he was breaking into like government work. So he was doing work at the VA hospitals, doing prevailing wage jobs. So I was making 13. And then every once in a while we'd get these jobs where the journeymen were making $55 an hour and their regular wage was like 30. So I'm looking at this. I was like, I got 4 years to do this trade school. And at the end of that 4 years, this guy is getting more and more of these government jobs. So by the time I'm done with my trade school, I'm going to be a foreman for this company. And he's going to be doing nothing but prevailing wage. So I was like, I'll take the pay cut, because I had other people in class when I was going to school that were making a lot more money as a first-year apprentice, but I was making a lot less. But I saw that end goal. I was like, I know when I finish, I'm with the right company who's going to be making a lot of money. So I just stuck with it. And then my third, fourth years when I started really making money. But those first 2-3 years, I wasn't making anything. So I was on Craigslist doing side jobs, helping people rebuild cars, all kinds of stuff. So nothing comes easy in life. You gotta do hard stuff sometimes. Sometimes you gotta take a pay cut to get through. Like going to college, it's like you don't get paid at all going to college. You gotta pay. So if you have a plan, obviously that works great for you. But in the trade, sometimes you have to make less money for that longer goal. So I was in San Diego for 4 or 5 years, did the trade school. So 4 years in the trade school, journeyed out, worked for this company, making really good money, and it was all prevailing wage. So my 401k was getting stocked up, my bank account was getting stocked up. So I just spent those years, paid off.
And what's prevailing wage? Just so anybody knows, what do you mean by prevailing?
Prevailing wage is Davis Bacon. I think it's based off the union wage.
If you look at Davis Bacon law, which is what Cody's talking about, basically the government sets the wages for electricians and every other trade that steps on any of their jobs. And even though Cody would be non-union, he's basically making at least a union wage, wherever that is in the country. Right. So that's that. When a lot of the time when the non-union guys talk about prevailing wage, that means they're making money hand over fist, and they like that.
Yeah. In non-union, I'm a big supporter of the union. Like, I think union jobs are awesome. I think the union's a great opportunity, especially starting out, because they'll pay for your trade school. And I think it's a lot easier to get set up through the union. Like, they're going to take care of you. You're going to get really good training, but it all kind of depends on your area. And because I had
unions aren't huge in Idaho, for instance.
Yeah. We actually got a pretty good union. It's also a right to work state. So you can work for a union company and not sign the books. But like before I left, I was thinking about joining the union just because like you've got a set schedule. When I was doing solar, we'd have jobs in Idaho Falls, which is like a 5-hour drive. So I'm leaving my house at 3 a.m, driving all the way out there, doing this job, coming home at 10 o'clock at night. And the pay is good, but it's like, you never know how long your day is going to be. You can't schedule anything. And I'm running blue collar bones on top of that. It was like, I don't have time for anything. I'm just waking up. I'm working my ass off all day, coming home, going to sleep, waking up the next day, going to do it again. So I think the union's a great option for some people. If you want to just work, you get a set schedule. You can take time off. There's a lot of good things about the union. I've never worked for a union, but, I talk to a lot of guys that are in the union. And I think both have their perks, but the union pushes that wage up. So anytime I hear non-union guys shitting on the union, I'm just like, dude, shut up. All right. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're live in a capitalistic society, right? So if unions willing to pay a certain wage and, the end user, the clients are willing to pay a certain wage, then the non-union guys are going to have to be competitive. Otherwise they're not going to get it. Right. So there's a natural balance. And I think you're seeing that. And to to the union's detriment, if they raise the wages too high, then you're going to see property owners and clients not want to be in cities and to be outside and to hire non-union companies or to entice non-union companies to go into traditionally union areas. You're seeing that everywhere, right? I saw that in Boston before I left. Too many trades were asking for way too much money, and it didn't make sense. And now they're losing ground in the city over it. So, and vice versa. Out in the sticks or the middle America where there's no big market, unions have less of an appeal for a lot of people, and usually it's because it's a right to work state. I live in Florida. Right to work state here. There are unions. They exist primarily in the big cities, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. But for the most part, it's non-union, and guys are making a lot more money than they used to here because it's very competitive. The demand is high. So you were in San Diego, and what brought you to Idaho again?
Shits and giggles. I was
just felt like
I finished. Yeah, so I finished up my my apprenticeship, got my journeyman license, and I was still working on a couple of projects that I was running out in China Lake. But I was traveling all the time. So we did a lot of jobs in Long Beach, China Lake, LA, San Bernardino area.
Okay.
So
it's a big area. It's a lot of ground to cover. I used to live in I used to live in Huntington.
Oh, killer. Yeah. So I think that's where I took my test, my journeyman test. Yeah, I had to go to Huntington Beach because everything was logged out. And I was like, I'm not waiting. I was just looking to find the closest one. It was Huntington Beach. Me and my buddy drove out there, stayed the night, woke up the next day, and took our test and got our journeyman license. So it's funny.
And then that transferred right to Idaho when you wanted to move. So what was it? 5 or 6 years in, you moved?
Yeah, I met my wife in San Diego, and she grew up there. And my plan was to move to San Diego because I knew that was where I was going to get the best training. You're working in a bigger city. You're going to see a lot of different projects. So I'm going to go out there for 4 years, do the trade school, learn as much as I can, and then I'm coming back to Merced or Central California area, and I'm going to buy some land and work out here. Not a big fan of California. Like growing up in Merced, you can just say it.
You escape
communism,
the blue liberal communist hellhole that Southern California's become.
Yeah, it's terrible. So, but I grew up in like the middle of California, like a bunch of farmers. Like all my cousins are like beef ranchers. So I grew up on a dairy.
Look at the map. That's red. That's red.
Yeah. So I grew up with rednecks. Like nobody there was a liberal or anything. So it was like I was kind of isolated. Moved to San Diego. I'm like, holy shit, like this is not what I thought. So I want to raise my family in the sticks. Like I want to have some land. I want to have some animals. I don't want to be in the city, the hustle and bustle, driving all the time. I want to be able to be home, be with my family, and start a life. So me and my wife were talking about Texas, went back and forth a couple times. Just checking out different areas of Texas, and we were all set to move to Texas. And then last minute, we went to Idaho for a weekend, and I was like, "Hey, everybody's moving to Texas. Beautiful. Nobody's going to Idaho." I was like, "We'll go to Idaho instead." Moved here, and everyone was like, "I hate California." So I was like, "Shit." I was like, "I guess everybody's moving here too."
Yeah, I mean, they hate Californians because they're taking over, but then they take a deep breath and they sigh when they find out who you are and what you're all about. So when you went to move, obviously, we know what the cost of living is like in California. We know what the trades pay in California. It's much higher than most other places because of the cost of living.
Yeah.
Was that scary for you to basically go from California where wages were high to Idaho, and you don't even know like what supply and demand's like, what the market is like, what they pay? What was your research like, and what was your anxiety level like, worrying about what you were going to be able to make there?
Yeah, I really wasn't worried too much at all. Zillow and Indeed. So I was just looking at what they were paying electricians, what the houses were, and I was going back and forth but I've been doing this in Texas. I did it in Tennessee. I did it all over the country. So I'm just looking, what do you pay electricians and how much can you buy a house for? And buy a house with some land. So I was looking at everything. Idaho was a little bit more expensive, but their wages were up a little bit than Texas, or the areas that I was looking at. So I'd been working for prevailing wage, paid off all my debt. So I was just saving money. And then when I moved to Idaho, I was able to pull out my 401k and buy a house. So I was like,
Mhm.
as long as I can buy a house, my mortgage is cheaper than my 1-bedroom apartment was in San Diego.
Yeah,
So
I can imagine.
yes, and I got, a couple acres with a barn, and it's like I can park my truck. I don't have to worry about anything. Yeah, it's great. I hated living in an apartment. Like, you're congested
And
and
I'm
locked in
sure
there.
you threw your license and resume out there, and I'm sure you had no problem finding a job in Idaho.
Oh,
Idaho,
I had
right?
a job right away. Yeah. I moved out in 2020, so right before COVID happened. So
Mhm.
right when I got there, COVID was kicking off, and everybody was shutting their doors. And I never took a day off.
Yeah,
In
right.
fact, I worked more. It was awesome because I didn't have to drive through traffic because everyone else was stuck at home. So I was able to drive to and from Boise and not hit any traffic. I mean, not really compared to San
Yeah,
Diego.
yeah. It's not like the
Yeah.
405 or the 5. Talk to me about, you moved to Idaho and this contractor is doing a bunch of government work, right? That's who you went to right away almost. And part of that government work is semiconductors. You were
It
able
was
to do
real
that in
slow.
Idaho?
Yeah, so that was in Idaho, and I worked there for about 2 years, and then some stuff came down. COVID was happening, and they were coming out with these vaccines, and then they were like, they wanted to force everybody to get a vaccine. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I left just because I don't like being told what to do. And I left there, went to work for myself as a handyman, just kind of goofing off, doing whatever. I did that
And
for a while.
when was this?
Probably 21.
Okay.
2021. I think the end of 21. I went to work for myself, and yeah, just doing like handyman work, a little bit of electrical, but I didn't have my electrical contractor's license. So I wasn't able to do any like big electrical jobs, couldn't pull permits. So I only did that for maybe like 6 or 7 months, and I kept getting requests, hey, can you do this wedding venue? Can you do this? Can you do that? But bigger jobs. I was like, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to work, finish up my last. I think I had a year left to get my contractor's license.
So you had a journeyman's license to be a master electrician in California. You took that over to Idaho, and it was reciprocated, right? So Idaho acknowledges other states' licenses.
Well,
and then
you have to take the test.
Okay,
So
I
had my journeyman license in San Diego or California. Came to Idaho, and they're like, we're going to accept your school and everything like that. You have your hours. You just have to take our test, and then you get your journeyman license. So it was real easy. I just had to take the exact same test I took a year ago in California, and then I got my Idaho license.
Gotcha.
But to get your electrical contractor's license in Idaho, you've got to have a 4-year trade school to get your journeyman license. And then you've got to hold that license for 4 more years before you can take your master's test. And then you can get your contractor's license. So you're talking 8 years. So I had just met my 8 years, and they dropped the requirement. So now all you have to do is have a journeyman license, and then you can go take your contractor's test and you get your contractor's license. So as soon as I met that 8-year criteria, they dropped it. So now it's
interesting because it's similar to becoming an engineer. I don't know if you know this, but in order to become like an electrical engineer, you have to have the college degree. Then you have to have 4 years work experience. Then you can take a test, and then you become an EIT, right? So then 4 years later, you have to take the PE test, which is how you get your stamp, which makes you allowed to stamp drawings. And then at that point, once you have the 4 years work experience on top of that, then you can become a professional engineer and get your stamp, which again allows you to take responsibility for your design. So it's 8 years, right? Wow. Now, what you're saying is you have to go through an apprenticeship, right? You graduate that, you become a journeyman where you get your own license, which allows you to, again, take responsibility for your work, which anytime you're taking responsibility for your work or your name is going on a permit or an application or anything, more money, right? And then you had to wait 4 more years to become a master electrician, which allows you to start your own contracting business, which is recognized by the state, California, Idaho, whatever. And it just so happens that they dropped that requirement as you did that. So you became a master electrician, and then did you have to get another certification for solar, or was that part of your master electrician electrical license?
No. So just as a journeyman, you can go install solar, but when you're doing solar, you've just got to get certified each piece of equipment that you do. So you're installing Solar Edge, you got to go through the Solar Edge class, get certified through that company, take it on a class, whatever. Usually whatever company you're working for will pay for it. If you work for yourself, it's not even that much. You pay the company, they give you the classes, you take them, you're certified. Now you can buy that equipment, you can install it, and then you would hook your phone up to it, commission it, set it up, make sure it's all working, and then you leave. Same thing with Tesla and Phase.
So what you're talking about is after you get, the government to acknowledge all of your abilities in the field and licensure, you have to follow up with manufacturers and get basically the green light from them saying, yes, I can install their products, and they will warranty my installs because they trust me as a professional to install it correctly, right?
Yes.
Because manufacturers, they can't take on the risk of electricians running all over the country and basically screwing up the installs and then getting blamed for their stuff not working, right? Is that what your company is doing now that you're on your own? Are you 100% solar, or is that part of what you do? What's it look like?
No. So I just started on my own, and I just literally just turned on Angie leads. And then I've got, other customers that I work for. So I do like panel upgrades, I cut in like can lights. I just do like direct to the homeowner. So I don't really do a lot of new construction or work with contractors really. For me, I can just set my own schedule, which is like the biggest thing for Blue Collar Bones. So it's like, okay, I just did spent the last 10 years learning the electrical trade. I've done solar, I've done industrial, I've built like jet fueling stations, solar, residential, commercial, all of it. So it's like, okay, what do I want to do? And, if I had one focus and I didn't have Blue Collar Bones and electrical, I probably would push more commercial and try to build a bigger business. But for me, I like being able to set my own schedule, spend a little bit more time with my family, focus on Blue Collar Bones, and really be consistent on what I'm doing with that. And then, I make more money than I was working for another company, working for myself. And then I'm dealing directly with homeowners. So I'm telling them what needs to be done. I'm not overselling things where, you work for other companies, you don't have a control on what they're selling. So a lot of times jobs will get sold.
Listen, this is an interesting point. So I try to push to all the younger people that there's a freedom that comes with this industry. If you get a skill set and you get the resume, you have so many paths open available to you that you have the freedom to basically create a life for yourself, whatever you want that to look like. It's not going to happen overnight, like you said. It might take 10 years, which is not a long time considering that you might be in the industry for 50, right? I mean, I don't know how old you are. You must be around 30. I'm 33. And I still got another 40 years ahead of me where I'm already loving the lifestyle that I live. But you've done big stuff, semiconductors. You've done, you just talked about jet fuel and you've touched other different commercial areas. And what have you done? You've settled into small, quick, easier residential stuff because of the freedom that it gives you. And you're making more money now working for yourself than you did when you were doing the big stuff. So again, the message to the young people is, listen, ton of freedom in the trades for you to create whatever life you want to live, as long as you put in the work, you get the education, and then you get the license to back it up so that you can take responsibility for your work and you can charge for it. That's what you've done for yourself. So kudos to you. And on top of that, you've been able to, create a side business and a passion project in Blue Collar Bones.
And here's another thing that you got to think of as like a blue collar worker. Obviously end goal, working for yourself if you want to, working for your company, having a set schedule, whatever you want to do. But, no matter what you do for a living, you got to think about future investments. So like for me, I bought a house with a detached shed barn setup. So I set up an Airbnb. So I've got an Airbnb income. I didn't buy the most expensive house you can live in. I bought something I wanted with some land, but I've got investment coming in from that Airbnb. And then on top of that, working for myself, I've got the electrician income.
So what's next for you? Is it more Airbnbs? Is it just growing your business and concentrating on, it seems like Blue Collar Bones is probably your passion, and your business enables you to put food on the table for your family. how do you see your life expanding from there? Do you want to take up your electrical contracting business? What do you want to do?
Yeah. So pretty much, I wanted to start an electrical business because I want a legacy. I want a family business. I want my kids to work for the electrical business or Blue Collar Bones, whatever they want to do, whether they want to work on an online business selling clothes or they want to work in the field, getting their hands dirty, climbing around in attics and doing panel upgrades. So I am focusing on both. Like the electrical business is just me right now, so I can kind of control that. Mm-hmm. Blue Collar Bones is getting, it's like I've tried so many things and failed at so many things with Blue Collar Bones, finally like dialing in the manufacturing side of it and trying to get it to where it's actually scalable, where you're not, because I'm not spending $50 on a hoodie and selling it for $60. So it's like, you got to, it's very expensive to make clothes. And I had no idea. So like trying to get that number to the right spot where you can scale it, it's getting closer and closer every day. So really, I want to scale Blue Collar Bones and build that into like a really cool community where I can have that be an actual business. And then, my family, my kids can work on that business, whether it's folding t-shirts and sending them, working on social media, there's a whole nother set of skills that you can learn on that business. And then I want to have the electrical business for any part of my family that wants to learn hands-on, learn a trade and work in the construction side. So both of these businesses I want to build over the years. I'm 30 years old. Who knows what it's going to look like in 10 years, but showing up to work every day and just pushing the envelope a little bit every day, it's going to be big. Just a little bit of work every day.
Sounds like you were raised with strong faith, and I'm sure that does something for your purpose. What has being a father done for that? Because I love the fact that you want to build a legacy for your family. You want footsteps to follow. You're basically trying to build something that they can stand on top of and reach even higher. Mm-hmm. A lot of young people see children as a negative thing. What do you say to the young people out there who might be thinking, fatherhood is a negative impact on your life? What would you say to them?
Everybody's got their own vision on their own life. So it's like, if you don't want kids, you don't want kids. I think if you're a good man and you've got a vision and you want to build something, I think having kids is terrific. It gives you something to strive for. It's like, building an empire, so-called, whether it's a giant empire or just a small empire that you can have your family working with you, but it's like something to give them that they can build on or take those skill sets and build something of their own. But I just want to be at the point where I'm able to help them financially and help them physically, like with knowledge sets that they need to acquire anything that they want in life, whether it be pursuing something online, selling, building a business on Instagram or whatever it is, or if they want to do it in the real world. Not that Instagram is not real, because obviously it's just the real world multiplied online.
Yeah, right.
But for me, having kids was exactly what I wanted to do. I want to be a dad. I want to have a family. I want to have a giant community. And when I'm older, I want my kids and grandkids working with me, and I want them to be all close. I'm a big family guy. Like, I think it's great. Obviously, if you don't want kids and you don't want that, I think you're missing out. But like I said,
I agree. My wife and I say all the time. I mean, listen, my wife and I, so similar story. Left the Northeast, went to Florida. People can connect the dots for why. At the same time, you left California. We're actually going to move to Texas now. We're looking at buying land in Texas to do the ranch thing.
Killer.
And keep the family close. And I'm trying to build something, with whether it's this or, my career during the day, that, they can follow up on. And I want to build something that they can stand on and reach higher. And I couldn't agree more. We talk all the time. My son is almost 2. He's about to turn 2, and we got another one on the way. My wife looks like she's about to either burst open or tip over.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, man, it's hard sometimes, but when it's fun, it is so much fun. And we feel so bad for the people that see it as such a negative burden. Like when I play hide and seek at 6:00, like my son's like a dog. Like he has this internal clock where he just knows that it's time to play. And at 6:00 every night, he knows it's time to play hide and seek. and he'll just start playing. And I kind of like figure it out. I'm like, oh crap, I guess I got to go run and hide now. Right. And it's just, it makes it all worth it. Right. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's definitely part of my purpose. So I appreciate that perspective. You and I definitely have a lot of parallel things going on. Just facial hair. So, so do you plan on getting employees soon for your electrical contracting?
Yeah, I do. So I just started in December. I'm just trying to figure out the marketing side, seeing what works. And as soon as I'm able to, actually, my brother just got out of the Army and he's a sprinkler fitter right now. But I know you talked to Bobby Blue Collar, and sprinkler fitting is a solid trade if you're in the right area. But it's like, some areas, certain trades are not that great. And also, like, going back to the whole family business, like, hey, I want you to come work with me and go through the trade school. So, because he's my brother, I want to work with him. I want to hang out with him. So it's like, if I can bring him on, awesome. And then I've got a bunch of buddies who are all electricians, and they're just like, when are you going to bring us on? So it's like, and that's another thing about construction. But it's like, my best friends, are made on the job site. You're just shitting on each other all day, joking around, and it's just good for your soul. So yeah, my end goal would definitely be to have some employees. I don't want to have a giant company. I want to have like a tight, close niche group of guys that are killers that I get along with, and we can all get the job done.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the culture in construction, a lot of people say that it's so negative, but you got to have thick skin, but I can't think of anything that I love more about construction than the culture and making fun of each other. And, I mean, you're working hard and stuff like that, but, going out to a diner with the guys and laughing even on a Saturday morning, or, whenever it is, or even just breaking each other's balls while you're on the job site and picking each other apart. I mean, it's a skill set that you develop, and you can tell who's been in it for a long time, because there's some guys that are better at dishing it out than others. But I mean, that's what I like. I mean, that's I can't describe it. I haven't found a good way to describe it to young people, because I think they struggle socially. Like, I don't even think they like talking to each other. I mean, I speak to a young man in my neighborhood, and he doesn't understand why, I did this personal challenge where I did 75 hard, and you got to talk to a stranger every day. He doesn't understand why you would develop such a social skill. And he really doesn't understand why, like, I make fun of him so much. And it's like, it's
like, because I like you, man.
Because I like you. This is how we develop. This is how we make personal relationships, especially as men, right? Like, we test each other, we break each other down, we build each other up. It's all part
Who
of it.
Can take it.
Yeah, like, those are the best relationships that I have in my life, and there's no better place to get it than construction. I mean, now that I'm an executive and I travel a lot, like, I genuinely miss a lot of my days in the field when I was a super. And I was just with the guys, all the time, and some of the girls too. There's girls out there that can give it just as good, if not better, than a lot of the guys, and they don't know how to handle it coming from a girl a lot of the time.
Yeah, right? It catches you off guard. Like, oh damn, wasn't
my wife.
That.
My wife does it all the time when people talk to her about sports. She's like a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan, and they assume she doesn't know what she's talking about, and they'll start talking shit to her about football or something like that. And she'll stand up on a chair and she will cut their head off. And they don't expect it, because they just don't expect it coming from a pretty 5 foot tall girl.
Yeah. That's an important thing, dude. Having a wife that can take shit talk and talk shit back. That's super big.
Sometimes she's like,
we'll rip on each other all the time. It's just hilarious. I couldn't be with a regular
Sometimes she's like a dog. No. I couldn't either. Like, I couldn't deal with like a doormat, somebody that just let me just do whatever. But it's almost like sometimes she's like a dog. Like, she doesn't know when she's supposed to be play biting, and then she bites down hard. You know what I mean? And like, some poor guy.
Hey, that hurt.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, oh, that was deep. Not for me. I can handle it. But here's one thing that I want to hit before we wrap it up. 27% of people, only 27% of people who go to college actually have a job that's related to their degree. That means that 73% of people are going to college for absolutely no reason. That doesn't even take into account that of the 27%, a lot of those people aren't making a lot of money. So you are not, there is an overwhelming chance, above 80-90% chance, that college is not for you.
Yeah.
So when Cody says skip college, pick a trade, this isn't some, I know we said anti-establishment earlier, but this isn't some like middle finger to education. It's actually the opposite. This is useful education that we're talking about that'll pay you and put food on your table for, the rest of your life. And we need to stop saying, oh, college isn't for everybody. I hate that, because the notion is like, oh, okay, stupid little person. It's okay that you're stupid. Like, you can just go, work in the trades, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you should still, it's like telling somebody they should feel good about being fat. Like, except for different, because like you said, you're your own contractor now. Look at the money that you're making and the freedom that you have. We already said that journeyman in Idaho makes $43 an hour, right? Before overtime. And you're making more now as your own contractor than you were then. College grads aren't making 86 grand a year. They're not. And you're making more than that with freedom and a passion project and side investments that you have because you never had debt. Right. So that's what you're talking about when you say skip college, pick a trade. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's actually more wages in Idaho that are up at $50 an hour. I was looking at a job on Indeed last night.
Can you name some in Idaho? What are other people making in Idaho for different trades?
Other trades? I'm not sure. Well, I know I got a buddy that's a plumber who's making 35, but he never got his journeyman license. So it's like he's making 35 with no card. But it's like, man, if you had that card.
An unlicensed plumber in Idaho is making 35 grand a year.
Yeah. I mean, he's a killer. He's probably like one of the best plumbers, but he never went through the right steps and got that license. That's why I'm a big proponent of trade schools. It's like, pick the right trade, but make sure day one, the first thing you do is get signed up for a trade school and ask your boss if they're going to pay, because most companies will pay you to go to trade school. Maybe you got to pay up front and they reimburse you as long as you keep an A grade. Like, that's a fair deal. Don't screw off in school, get an A, and we're going to pay for your classes. So your company's paid for your trade school, but get in as soon as you can, because a trade school goes quick. 4 years is not that long. And as soon as you're done, you're set. You don't have to do anything else. A couple classes a year to keep your license, and that's it. But once you have that license, you're golden.
So, and what did you see on Indeed about other? There's other electricians.
There's another electrician job that's paying 51, and then
in Idaho.
Yeah, in Idaho, and then the union, they're paying $40 an hour, and they got a bunch of big projects where they're doing like $150 a day incentive, not like a per diem, but like $150 a day incentive. So you're making $40 an hour plus $150 a day, working 5 days a week, 5 tens. It's like it's a good amount of money.
Almost 150 times 5. That's another $750 a week.
Yeah,
not bad.
It's like, dude, but you got to pay attention to these things. Whatever trade you're in, there's a niche in that trade that's going to make you a lot of money. You just got to find it. Google search, Indeed, whatever. Ask guys around.
Right. So listen, I really appreciate you coming on. Go follow Cody. Go buy a shirt. Especially if you're in the trade, make sure you buy a shirt, you buy a sticker, help spread the brand, help spread the message, because the more that merch makes its way around, the more people find him and they hear the message. It's such a simple mantra: skip college, pick a trade. And it's one that we need to change the narrative that's been out there. We need to change the micro narrative of it's okay, it's noble to go into the trades. It is the right choice for the vast majority of people, not just in America, but in any country. So go follow Cody at Blue Collar Bones. Go buy a t-shirt, share his content, like and subscribe to everything that he's got going on. You can follow me again at Instagram, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at The Construction Mentor. You can catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Again, it's The Construction Mentor Podcast. And Cody, anything else that I may have missed before I go?
We hit it all. Appreciate you having me on and everything that you're doing for the trades. That's awesome.
I appreciate that, Cody. Thank you. Again, I love everybody. Hey, listen, and I'm sure Cody would say the same. DM me anytime you need advice. Anytime
Absolutely.
you're trying to, figure out a path for yourself, you could DM Cody the same thing. And like I said, go check out his reels and his stories, because he's basically pulled the public, and there's a good chance that you can find somebody near you that can point you in the right direction, or put the right number in mind for a salary for a career for you, no matter where you're at. So I appreciate everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time.